The deepest wounds are the ones inflicted by those we've sacrificed everything for. I should know. I've spent 58 years of my life giving pieces of myself away, only to watch them get trampled on like they were nothing. Before I tell you how I finally took back what was mine, you should understand that I tried, God knows I tried, to be the mother they needed. I opened my heart, my home, my wallet, everything. And what did I get in return? An email. A goddamn email telling me I wasn't welcome at my own daughter's wedding. The same wedding I had already put $30,000 toward. If you stay until the end, you'll understand why sometimes the only way to heal is to make sure those who hurt you feel exactly what you felt. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The morning I received Natalie's email, I was sitting at my kitchen island with a cup of coffee, scrolling through my iPad. It was a Tuesday in April, unseasonably warm for New Jersey. Through the window, I could see my neighbor Ted watering his precious hydrangeas, the ones he babied more than most people do their children. My phone pinged with a notification, and there it was, my daughter's name in bold. I remember smiling before I opened it. Things had been tense between us lately. Arguments about wedding plans, about her fiancé Marcel, who I never trusted, about the money. But wedding planning is stressful for everyone, I told myself. We'd work through it. Mom, the email began. No dear mom, no hi mom, just mom, like a label on a file. We've finalized the guest list for the Paris ceremony, and after discussing it with Marcel and his family, we think it's best if you join us via live stream instead of in person. Marcel's mother has strong opinions about the intimate nature of the ceremony, and we want to respect her wishes. I read it twice, my coffee growing cold beside me. The next paragraph was about technical details, how they'd set up a private link, how I could watch from the comfort of my home, as if watching my only daughter get married through a screen was some kind of luxury. The kicker came at the end. If you want to be a part of it, you can watch through the Google Earth window, LOL. LOL. She wrote LOL after telling me I couldn't attend the wedding I'd helped finance. The wedding I'd been saving for since she was in diapers. My hands didn't shake. My eyes stayed dry. Something hardened inside me in that moment. Something I couldn't name yet, but would come to recognize as my salvation. I typed back, "Sure, enjoy your big day." 4 words. No emotion, no fight, just acceptance. I knew it would drive her crazy. Natalie always needed a reaction from me. Tears, anger, something she could point to and say, "See, this is why we can't have you there." I wasn't giving her that satisfaction. My phone rang almost immediately. I watched her name flash across the screen, then set it face down on the counter. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, and drove to work like it was any other day. I've been office manager at Caldwell & Byrne Law Firm for 18 years. The managing partner, Robert Caldwell, is the kind of man who still holds doors open and remembers how you take your coffee. He noticed something was off the minute I walked in. "Sharon, you look like you've seen a ghost." I adjusted the papers in my arms and forced a smile. Just didn't sleep well, that's all. He didn't push, but he brought me a latte from the cafe downstairs an hour later, setting it on my desk with a gentle pat on my shoulder. It was the first genuine kindness I'd experienced in months, and I nearly broke down right there. By lunchtime, Natalie had called 12 times and left 8 voicemails. I listened to one. "Mom, pick up. This isn't funny. We need to talk about this." Her voice had that edge to it, the one she used when she wasn't getting her way. I deleted it along with the others. At 5 o'clock, I drove to Ridgewood Bank and asked to speak with Carlos, the manager who'd handled my accounts for years. "Mrs. Brown, always good to see you," he said, ushering me into his office. "What can I help you with today?" I sat down, smoothed my skirt over my knees, and met his eyes. "I need to cancel a wire transfer." His eyebrows rose slightly. "The one to France? For your daughter's wedding?" "Yes, that one." "May I ask why?" "There might be fees associated with the cancellation." "I'll pay the fees," I said, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "The circumstances have changed." Carlos typed something into his computer. "The good news is it hasn't processed yet. You caught it just in time." He looked up at me. "Are you sure about this, Mrs. Brown?" $50,000 is a significant amount. $50,000. That was what I'd planned to give them on top of the $30,000 I'd already contributed. $80,000 total for a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. I'm sure, I said. When I got home, there were 3 more missed calls from Natalie and 1 from my son, Justin. So she'd called in reinforcements. I turned off my phone and opened a bottle of Merlot I'd been saving for a special occasion. This qualified. I sat on my back deck as twilight settled over the yard, sipping wine and thinking about how I'd gotten here. About the years of working 60-hour weeks after their father left. About the college tuition payments that emptied my retirement fund. About holding Natalie's hand through 2 breakups and a career change. About helping Justin with the down payment on his house. I'd done everything right. Everything society tells mothers they should do. I'd sacrificed, supported, loved unconditionally. And somehow, I'd still ended up alone on my deck, uninvited to my daughter's wedding because Marcel's mother, a woman who'd spent Natalie's childhood in the south of France while I was here coaching soccer teams and making Halloween costumes, had strong opinions. My thoughts drifted to Robert Caldwell's wife, Victoria, who had died 3 years earlier. I'd helped arrange the funeral, ordered the flowers, made sure there was food at the house afterward. Robert had held my hand at one point and said, "Sharon, I don't know what I'd do without you." It was professional, not romantic, but it had meant something. Someone saw me. Someone appreciated what I did. When was the last time my children had truly seen me? The wine bottle was half empty when my doorbell rang. I considered ignoring it, but something told me I should answer. Maybe it was Natalie come to apologize in person. It wasn't. It was Justin, my son, looking uncomfortable in his business casual attire. He'd come straight from his job at the marketing firm. "Mom," he said, stepping past me into the hallway without waiting for an invitation. "Why aren't you answering your phone? Nat's freaking out." I closed the door and followed him into the living room. "Hello to you too, Justin." He turned to face me, running a hand through his dark hair, the same color mine had been before the gray took over. "What's going on?" "Nat says you're not coming to the wedding now." "I wasn't invited to the wedding," I corrected him. "There's a difference. That's not how she tells it. She says you're being difficult about the whole live stream thing." I laughed, and it came out harder than I intended. "Right, the live stream thing. Where I watch my daughter get married through a screen because her future mother-in-law doesn't want me there." Justin shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "It's complicated, Mom. Marcel's family is very traditional, and they're paying for most of it." I felt my eyebrows shoot up. "Are they? Because I've already put in $30,000, and I was about to wire over $50,000 more when I got the email telling me I'm not welcome." That made him pause. $50,000! Jesus, Mom, that's a lot of money. Yes, it is. Money I worked hard for. Money I saved instead of taking vacations or buying a new car or dating after your father left. I moved to the bar cart in the corner and poured myself another glass of wine. I didn't offer him one. "But don't worry. I've canceled the transfer." "You what?" His voice rose. "Mom, they're counting on that money. The venue deposit, the catering, the flowers. It's all booked." I took a slow sip of my wine. "Not my problem anymore." "Of course it's your problem. She's your daughter." He was almost shouting now. "And I'm her mother," I said quietly. "But apparently that doesn't mean I get to attend her wedding." Justin ran both hands through his hair this time, his tell when he was frustrated. "This is so like you, Mom. Always making everything about yourself." Something snapped inside me. Not loudly, not violently, but definitively, like a thread pulled too tight for too long. "Get out of my house." He blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Get out." "Mom, come on." "No." I set my wine glass down carefully. "I have spent my entire adult life making sure you and your sister had everything you needed. I worked 2 jobs when your father decided he'd rather start a new family than support his existing one. I put you both through college. I co-signed your mortgage. I have never, not once, made anything about myself. But I will not stand here in my own home and be spoken to like this. So leave." He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker across his face. Surprise, confusion, maybe even a hint of respect. Then he turned and walked out, closing the door behind him with a quiet click that somehow hurt more than if he'd slammed it. I stayed standing in my living room for several minutes, my heart hammering in my chest. This wasn't like me. I was always the peacemaker, the one who smoothed things over, who made sure everyone else was comfortable even at my own expense. But as I picked up my wine glass again, I realized something important. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. My phone lit up again on the coffee table. Natalie's face smiled at me from the screen. A photo taken on her 30th birthday last year. Before Marcel. Before Paris. Before everything fell apart. I pressed the power button until the screen went black. The next day would bring consequences, explanations, probably more accusations. But for tonight, the silence was mine, and I intended to enjoy it. Morning brought no relief, just 43 missed calls and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. I scrolled through them as I made coffee, noting the progression from anger to bargaining to outright panic. "Mom, we need to talk." 7:05 p.m. "Why aren't you answering? This is childish." 8:32 p.m. "The venue called. They said the payment fell through." 9:17 p.m. "Please call me back. This isn't funny anymore." 10:43 p.m. "Mom, we're going to lose everything if we don't pay by tomorrow. Marcel's parents won't cover it all." 12:01 a.m. The last one, sent at 3:24 a.m. "I don't understand why you're doing this to me." I smiled into my coffee mug. Of course she didn't understand. Natalie had spent her entire life receiving my time, my energy, my money, without ever questioning where it came from or what it cost me. That was about to change. My phone rang again as I was getting dressed for work. This time, it was a French number I didn't recognize. Marcel, probably. I declined the call. At work, I found an email from Natalie waiting in my personal inbox. The subject line read, "Please don't ruin my wedding." I opened it, curious to see how she'd frame her argument. "Mom, I know you're upset about the live stream situation, but this is extreme. We've lost our venue deposit, and if we don't pay the rest by end of day Paris time, in 6 hours, we lose the caterer too. Marcel's parents are furious and saying this proves they were right about you all along. Please don't do this to us. We can talk about you coming to the wedding, but we need that money first." So that was it. They were willing to talk about my attendance now that the money was in jeopardy. Not guarantee it. Not apologize for excluding me in the first place. Just talk about it. As if my presence at my own daughter's wedding was a negotiable item, contingent on my financial contribution. I closed the email without responding and focused on the contract review I'd been putting off. Around noon, Robert Caldwell stopped by my desk. "Lunch?" he offered. That new Italian place opened across the street. I almost declined, my standard response when someone interrupted my carefully planned day, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the events of the past 24 hours, or maybe it was just the genuine warmth in Robert's eyes. Whatever it was, I found myself nodding. "I'd like that," I said, surprising us both. Over pasta, Robert told me about his weekend with his grandchildren. "Exhausting," he admitted, "but wonderful. Everything in my life seems sharper, more meaningful since Victoria died. Like I'm living for both of us now." "That's beautiful," I said, meaning it. He set down his fork. "Sharon, forgive me for saying this, but you seem different today. Lighter, somehow." I considered deflecting, as I usually did when conversations turned personal. Instead, I told him the truth. About Natalie, the wedding, the uninvitation, all of it. So I canceled the money transfer, I finished. "And now they're scrambling." Robert whistled low. "That's quite a statement. How does it feel?" The question caught me off guard. No one ever asked how I felt. They asked what I thought, what I planned to do, what I could offer. Never how I felt. "It feels—" I searched for the right word. "Necessary." He nodded slowly. "Sometimes we have to set boundaries, even with, especially with, the people we love most." He reached across the table and briefly squeezed my hand. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing." When I returned to the office, there were 3 more missed calls and a text from Justin. Natalie's hysterical. Please call her back. I put my phone away and immersed myself in work. It wasn't until I was driving home that I allowed myself to think about what would happen next. The catering deadline had passed hours ago. By now, Natalie and Marcel would be frantically calling vendors, making excuses, perhaps begging his parents for more money. Part of me, a small, still motherly part, ached at the thought of her distress. But the rest of me, the part that had been silently screaming for decades, felt nothing but cold satisfaction. My house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, but there was a figure sitting on my front steps. As I got closer, I recognized Natalie's best friend since childhood, Sophia. Mrs. Brown, she said, standing as I approached. I'm sorry to ambush you like this. It's fine, Sophia. I unlocked the door and gestured for her to follow me inside. Would you like some tea? She nodded, following me to the kitchen. I filled the kettle and set it to boil, hyper-aware of her eyes on me. Natalie sent you, I said finally, not bothering to phrase it as a question. Sophia sighed. She's a mess, Mrs. Brown. The venue's gone, and now they're scrambling to find somewhere else to hold the ceremony. Marcel's parents are talking about calling the whole thing off. That sounds stressful. I kept my voice neutral as I placed tea bags in mugs. It is. Sophia leaned against the counter. Look, I get that you're hurt. Being told to watch your daughter's wedding online is, well, it's awful. But is this really how you want things to be between you two? Do you want to blow up your relationship forever? The kettle whistled, and I poured hot water into the mugs before answering. What relationship, Sophia? The one where I give and Natalie takes? The one where I'm good enough to pay for the wedding but not good enough to attend it? She made a mistake, Sophia insisted. A big one, I know, but she loves you. I handed her a mug. Does she? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like she loves what I can do for her. That's not the same thing. Sophia cradled the mug in her hands, looking younger suddenly, more like the girl who used to sleep over in our basement, giggling with Natalie until all hours. What can I tell her? Is there anything that would change your mind? I considered the question seriously. Was there anything Natalie could say or do that would make me release the funds, that would heal this breach? No, I said finally. There isn't. Sophia's face fell. Not even an apology? Words are easy, Sophia, especially when there's money on the line. I took a sip of my tea. Natalie made her choice. Now she has to live with it, just like I've lived with all of mine. After Sophia left, I sat in my silent kitchen for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences, about how we teach people how to treat us, one interaction at a time. My phone vibrated with yet another call from Natalie. This time, I answered. Mom! Her voice was raw, desperate. Finally, please, you have to help us. Everything's falling apart. The venue's gone, the caterer's gone, and Marcel's parents are threatening to pull out completely. Hello, Natalie, I said calmly. Did you hear what I said? We're losing everything, all because you're being petty about the live stream thing. I let her words hang in the air for a moment. I heard you. So you'll help? You'll send the money? The hope in her voice was palpable. No, I said. I won't. Her breath caught. What? I said no, Natalie. The money is staying where it is. But why? Is this about being there in person? Fine, you can come. We'll figure it out with Marcel's family somehow. Just please send the money. I closed my eyes. There it was. The concession I might have accepted 24 hours ago. But something had shifted inside me. Something permanent and unbending. It's too late, I said. Too late? It can't be too late. Mom, please, this is my wedding we're talking about. Yes, I agreed. Your wedding. The one you didn't want me at until you needed my money. She started to cry then, big gulping sobs that once would have broken my heart. What am I supposed to do now? For the first time in her life, I didn't offer a solution. That, I said quietly, is entirely up to you. I ended the call and turned off my phone once more. Tomorrow would bring more drama, more accusations, more attempts to make me bend. But tonight, in the quiet of my kitchen, I was beginning to recognize the woman I'd always been beneath the role of mother. Strong, decisive, and finally, Finally done with putting myself last. The next morning, I woke before my alarm. For the first time in months, I felt rested. No midnight anxiety, no grinding my teeth in my sleep. I made coffee and took it out to the deck, watching the neighborhood come to life as the sun rose. Mrs. Chen across the street was walking her poodle. The Sullivan kids were waiting for the school bus, their backpacks almost as big as they were. Normal life continuing all around me while mine transformed completely. My phone remained off. I knew what would be waiting when I turned it on. More pleas, more accusations, more attempts to manipulate me into changing my mind. I wasn't ready to face them yet. Instead, I drove to work early and lost myself in the familiar rhythms of the office. Filing documents, scheduling meetings, proofreading briefs, simple tasks with clear parameters and predictable outcomes. Unlike motherhood, around 10, Robert appeared in my doorway. "Just checking in," he said. "How are you holding up?" "Fine," I replied automatically, then corrected myself. "Actually, I don't know. It's strange. I feel both terrible and liberated." He nodded as if this made perfect sense. The first steps toward self-respect often feel that way. Painful, but necessary. He hesitated, then asked, "Have you heard from Natalie today?" "I've kept my phone off." His eyebrows rose slightly. Bold move. "I needed the space," I explained, "to stay firm in my decision." "Well, when you do turn it back on, brace yourself." At my questioning look, he added, "I may have heard something from my daughter. She's friends with Sophia on social media." My stomach tightened. "What's happening?" "Apparently, Natalie posted something last night. About you." He looked uncomfortable. It wasn't flattering. I felt a wave of heat rise to my face. "What did she say?" "I didn't see it myself, but according to Rebecca, it was a long rant about how you've ruined her wedding because you're jealous of her happiness and always try to make everything about yourself." He grimaced. There were quite a few comments supporting her. The betrayal stung, but not as much as it once might have. "Of course there were," I said. "She's always been good at playing the victim. For what it's worth, Rebecca took your side. Said it was unbelievably tacky to badmouth your own mother online, especially when she's been bankrolling your life." I managed a smile. "Please thank her for me." After Robert left, I sat staring at my blank computer screen. So Natalie had taken their private conflict public. It was a familiar pattern. Whenever she felt cornered, she'd seek external validation, rallying others to her defense. As a teenager, she'd complain to her friends' parents about my unfair rules. In college, she'd post cryptic social media updates that painted me as controlling or out of touch. But this was different. This was a direct attack, designed to shame me into submission. I turned my phone back on. It immediately began buzzing with notifications, 27 new messages, 14 missed calls, and 5 voicemails. I ignored them all and opened Facebook. Natalie's post was at the top of my feed, already with over 100 comments and shares. To everyone who's been asking about wedding updates, it's with a broken heart that I have to tell you Marcel and I are scrambling to save our day. My own mother has decided to withdraw financial support that she promised us, all because she's upset about not being physically present at the ceremony, even though we arranged for her to watch live. She's known about these plans for months, but waited until the last minute to pull this stunt, causing us to lose our venue and possibly more. I'm devastated that someone who's supposed to love me unconditionally would sabotage the most important day of my life out of pure spite. The comments were exactly what I'd expected. "OMG, that's horrible. Mothers should support their children no matter what. So selfish of her. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Who does that to their own daughter?" I scrolled through them, feeling oddly detached, until I reached one that made me pause. "Wait, you uninvited your mom from your wedding and expected her to pay for it? That seems off." Natalie had replied immediately. "She wasn't uninvited. The ceremony is just very intimate because of cultural traditions on Marcel's side. She was always going to be included via livestream, and she agreed to this arrangement months ago." Another commenter had jumped in. "Still weird to take someone's money but not let them attend in person." Natalie again. "You don't understand the situation. Please don't judge without knowing all the facts." I put the phone down, suddenly exhausted by the familiar dance. Natalie twisting the truth, painting herself as the reasonable one, the victim, while dismissing any perspective that challenged her narrative. I'd spent years accepting her version of reality, doubting my own feelings and perceptions when they conflicted with hers. No more. I picked up the phone and called Justin. He answered on the first ring. "Mom, finally. Have you seen what Natalie posted? It's getting out of hand." "I've seen it," I said. "That's why I'm calling. I want you to tell me the truth about something." "What?" He sounded wary. "Did you know that I wasn't going to be allowed at the wedding? Before I got that email?" There was a pause, just long enough to confirm what I already suspected. "Justin," I prompted. He sighed. "Yes, I knew. Natalie told me a few weeks ago when we had lunch. And you didn't think to mention it to me? She said she was working up to telling you, that she was trying to find the right way to explain." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The right way to explain that I wasn't welcome at my daughter's wedding, but my money was?" "Mom, it's complicated. Marcel's mother is very traditional, and she wanted only immediate family. I am immediate family," I cut in. "You know what I mean. Blood relatives, plus Marcel's godparents who are like family to them. And you? Were you invited to be there in person?" Another telling silence. "You were, weren't you?" I pressed. "Mom, answer the question, Justin." "Yes," he admitted finally. "I was invited, but it's different for me. Marcel and I get along really well, and his mom likes me." "Stop." My voice was ice. "Just stop. I understand perfectly now." And I did. The picture was crystal clear. I was good enough to pay for the wedding, but not good enough to attend it. My son knew and said nothing. My daughter lied publicly to save face. "Mom, please don't do this. Natalie's a mess. The wedding's falling apart. Marcel's parents are threatening to cut him off if he marries into such a dysfunctional family. You have to help her." "No," I said simply. "I don't. But I'm done, Justin. Done being the ATM. Done being the scapegoat. Done being the only adult in this family." "So what? You're just going to let her wedding be ruined? What kind of mother does that?" The question hung between us, heavy with accusation. "The kind who's finally learned her worth," I answered. "Tell your sister to take down that post. It's full of lies, and we both know it." "Or what?" he challenged. "Or I'll tell my side of the story. Publicly. Every detail." I ended the call before he could respond and went back to my work, my hands steady as I typed. The old Sharon would have been shaking with emotion, torn between anger and guilt. But this new version of me, the one who'd been emerging since that first email, felt nothing but resolve. At lunch, I found myself wondering what Victoria would do in my situation. Robert's wife had been a force of nature, smart, kind, but nobody's fool. I could almost hear her voice. "Stand your ground, Sharon. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way." My phone buzzed again, a text from Justin. "The post is gone. Natalie wants to talk to you." I texted back, "I'm at work. I'll call her this evening." His response came quickly. "She says it can't wait. They have to make decisions today." I put the phone away without responding. Their urgency was not my emergency, not anymore. By the time I left the office, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I drove home with the windows down, feeling the spring air against my skin. There was a heaviness in my chest, the weight of decades of motherhood, of love and disappointment tangled together so tightly they'd become indistinguishable. But beneath that heaviness was something else, something with wings. I was halfway through making dinner when the doorbell rang. Not a quick press, but a long, insistent buzz that told me whoever was outside wasn't planning to leave easily. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and went to the door. Through the peephole, I saw Marcel, my almost son-in-law, standing on my porch with the rigid posture of someone bracing for confrontation. I considered ignoring him, but that felt cowardly. Whatever was coming, I would face it head-on. I opened the door. Marcel. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed, wearing what appeared to be yesterday's clothes. "Mrs. Brown," he said, his French accent more pronounced than usual. "May I come in?" I stepped aside to let him pass. He walked into my living room and stood awkwardly, like he wasn't sure what to do with his body. "Would you like something to drink?" I asked, more out of habit than hospitality. He shook his head. "No, thank you. I won't stay long. I'm guessing Natalie sent you." "No." He ran a hand over his face. "She doesn't know I'm here. She would be very angry if she knew." That surprised me. Marcel had always struck me as the type to do whatever Natalie wanted. It was one of the reasons I'd never quite trusted him. "Then why are you here?" He took a deep breath. "To apologize, and to explain." I gestured to the sofa, and we both sat, leaving plenty of space between us. "The email," he began. "The one about you watching online. Natalie didn't write it." I raised an eyebrow. "No?" "No, I did." His eyes met mine, steady despite his obvious exhaustion. "Natalie told me to handle it. She said she couldn't do it herself. The cowardice of it struck me anew. So she delegated uninviting her mother to her fiancé." "Yes." He looked away. "I should have refused, but things have been very difficult with my family, with the wedding planning. Everyone fighting over every detail. That doesn't excuse what you did." "No, it doesn't." He clasped his hands together. "The thing is, Mrs. Brown, my mother is complicated. She has always been very controlling, very protective of our family traditions. When she found out how much you were contributing to the wedding, she became obsessed with the idea that you would try to take over." "Take over what exactly?" "Everything. The ceremony, the reception. She convinced my father that you would embarrass them in front of their friends. That you would try to make the wedding American instead of respecting our French traditions." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "That's ridiculous. I've never interfered in Natalie's plans. I've just paid for them." "I know." He looked miserable. "But my parents threatened to withdraw their support if we didn't limit your involvement. And Natalie was afraid of disappointing them. She wants so badly for them to accept her. So she sacrificed me instead." He nodded slowly. "It was wrong. We both knew it was wrong. And yet you did it anyway." "Yes." He swallowed hard. "And now everything is falling apart. We've lost the venue. The caterer won't return our calls. And my parents are saying they won't attend a makeshift wedding. They're back in France, telling everyone the wedding is postponed indefinitely." "How unfortunate for you." He flinched at my tone. "I didn't come here to ask for money." "Then why did you come, Marcel? What do you want from me?" "I want—" He seemed to struggle with the words. "I want to make things right. Somehow." I studied him. This man my daughter had chosen. He was handsome in a conventional way, with good manners and a respectable job at an international bank. But sitting on my sofa, stripped of the confident facade I'd always seen him wear, he looked young and lost. "You can't make this right," I said finally. Not with an apology, not with an explanation. Some things, once broken, stay broken. "I understand." He stood up. "But I needed you to know the truth. Natalie loves you. She's just caught between impossible choices." "No, Marcel. She made her choice, and it wasn't me." He nodded, accepting my verdict. At the door, he turned back. "What will you do now?" "That," I said, echoing what I'd told Natalie, "is entirely up to me." After he left, I went back to the kitchen and mechanically finished making my dinner, a simple pasta dish I'd cooked 100 times before. As I ate alone at my kitchen table, I mulled over what Marcel had said. So it was about control, about Natalie desperately trying to please her future in-laws, even at the cost of her relationship with me. About Marcel's mother seeing me as a threat, someone who might steal her spotlight or challenge her authority. In another life, the one I'd been living until a few days ago, I would have swallowed my hurt, written the check, and watched my daughter get married through a screen, all to keep the peace, to be the bigger person, to prove my love was truly unconditional. But that life was over now. My phone rang, Natalie again. This time I answered. "Mom," she said immediately, her voice thick with tears. "Marcel's parents are flying back to France. They're telling everyone the wedding's off because of family drama. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me? Almost as humiliating as being told you can watch your daughter's wedding on Google Earth," I suggested. "That was a joke." A stupid joke I never should have made, but I was stressed and, God, Mom, are you really going to punish me forever over one email? It wasn't just an email, Natalie. It was a choice. You chose Marcel's family over me. That's not fair. I was trying to make everyone happy. Everyone except me. She made a sound of frustration. What do you want from me? A groveling apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I didn't stand up to Marcel's mother. I'm sorry for everything. Is that enough? Will you help us now? Her words should have moved me. A week ago, they would have. But something fundamental had shifted inside me. A tectonic change in how I saw myself, my children, my place in the world. No, I said quietly. It's not enough. What? She sounded genuinely shocked. But I apologized. What more do you want? I want you to understand what you did. Not just apologize because you need something from me. I do understand. Mom, please, we can still fix this. We can find a new venue, reschedule everything. You can be there in person, front row. Just please help us. I closed my eyes, suddenly bone-tired. Goodbye, Natalie. Wait! Don't hang up. Mom, I'm begging you. I ended the call. My phone immediately rang again. This time, it was Justin. Have you completely lost your mind? He demanded without preamble. Natalie's hysterical. The wedding's canceled. Marcel's parents are telling everyone our family is insane. Hello to you too, Justin. This isn't funny, Mom. This is serious. Natalie's whole future is at stake here. Is it? Or is it just an expensive party that's at stake? He made a sound of disbelief. It's her wedding. The most important day of her life. And you're ruining it because your feelings got hurt. My feelings didn't get hurt, Justin. I was deliberately excluded from a significant family event that I was expected to help fund. There's a difference. So what? This is about the principle of the thing? You're willing to destroy your relationship with your daughter over a principle? I considered his question seriously. Yes, I said finally. I am. Because if I don't stand up for myself now, when will I? How many more times will I let myself be used and discarded when it's convenient? How many more times will I put everyone else's needs before my own? There was silence on the other end of the line. When Justin spoke again, his voice was different, more measured, almost wary. I've never heard you talk like this before. No, I agreed. You haven't. Because I've spent most of my life being the person everyone expected me to be. The endlessly supportive mother. The reliable ex-wife who never caused problems. The office manager who worked late without complaint. But I'm done with that now. So what happens next? He asked. You just cut us off? Financially and emotionally? I don't know yet, I admitted. But whatever happens, it will be on my terms. Not yours, not Natalie's, not Marcel's parents. Mine. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my kitchen, listening to the familiar sounds of my home, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the wall clock, the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. For decades, I'd filled this space with other people's needs and wants, leaving almost no room for my own. Not anymore. 3 days passed without a word from Natalie or Justin. No calls, no texts, no emails. The silence was both a relief and a new kind of pain. Proof that when I stopped being useful to them, I stopped existing in their world. At work, I mentioned the quiet to Robert as we reviewed the week's schedule. They're regrouping, he said, his eyes wise behind his reading glasses. Planning their next move. My ex-wife used to do the same thing whenever I stood up to her. What move did she usually make? The nuclear option. He smiled ruefully, bringing in reinforcements. Family members, old friends, anyone who might be able to change my mind. As if on cue, my phone rang. The screen showed a name I hadn't seen in years. Claire Brown, my former mother-in-law. I stared at it, momentarily stunned, then declined the call. Speak of the devil, I murmured to Robert. He raised an eyebrow. Reinforcements? My ex-husband's mother. We haven't spoken since Justin's college graduation 8 years ago. That's quite the deep bench they're pulling from. I nodded, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. If they'd reached out to Claire, they were desperate indeed. And desperate people did desperate things. Sure enough, by the time I got home that evening, my voicemail was full. Claire had left 3 messages, each more concerned than the last. My sister had called twice. Even my cousin in Arizona, whom I exchanged Christmas cards with but rarely spoke to, had left a message asking if everything was okay. The next morning, Saturday, I was weeding the garden when a familiar car pulled into my driveway. A sleek, black BMW I'd helped pick out years ago, back when I was still married. My ex-husband, David, stepped out, looking much the same as he had when he left me for his dental hygienist 15 years ago. A little grayer, a little heavier, but still carrying himself with the confidence of a man who'd never faced real consequences for his actions. "Sharon," he called, approaching with a forced smile. "You're looking well." I straightened up, pulling off my gardening gloves. "What are you doing here, David? Can't an ex-husband check in on the mother of his children? Especially when those children are worried sick about her?" "Cut the act," I said. "Natalie sent you." He had the grace to look slightly abashed. "She's concerned. We all are. This isn't like you, Sharon." "No," I agreed. "It isn't. That's rather the point." He frowned, clearly thrown off script. "May I come in? It's a bit warm out here." I considered refusing, then decided against it. Better to get this over with. In the kitchen, I poured us both iced tea, a habit from our married days that my hands remembered even if my heart didn't. He took a sip and grimaced slightly. "Still not sweet enough for you?" I asked, remembering his southern preference for tea that was practically syrup. "It's fine," he said. "Listen, Sharon. Natalie tells me you've put her in quite a bind. Something about withdrawing funds for the wedding?" "She told you that much," I said. "Did she also tell you why?" He shifted uncomfortably. "She mentioned something about you being upset over watching the ceremony remotely. But surely that's not worth destroying your relationship with our daughter." "I'm not destroying anything, David. I'm simply refusing to pay for a wedding I'm not welcome to attend." "Not welcome? Natalie said you were always going to be included, just differently." I laughed. "Is that what she told you? That I was included differently? What a creative way to spin being explicitly uninvited." David looked genuinely confused. "Wait, back up. You're saying Natalie told you not to come to the wedding at all?" "She had her fiancé tell me, actually, by email, that I could watch through the Google Earth window if I wanted to be part of it." His mouth opened, then closed. For once in his life, David Brown appeared to be at a loss for words. "I see," he said finally. "That's not what she told me." "I'm shocked," I said dryly. He stared into his tea. "Still, Sharon, it's her wedding. Couldn't you just let it go? For her sake? Let it go," I repeated. "Like I let it go when you left me for Jessica. Like I let it go when you moved to Florida and saw the kids twice a year. Like I let it go when you forgot child support payments 3 months in a row." He had the decency to flush. "That was different." "Yes," I agreed. "It was. Because back then, I had no choice. I had 2 children to raise and a mortgage to pay. But now, I have choices, David. And I choose not to be treated like an ATM with no feelings." "So this is about money?" "No," I said, my voice steady. "It's about respect. About finally demanding what I deserve instead of accepting whatever scraps of consideration people feel like throwing my way." He studied me for a long moment. "You've changed." "Yes," I said simply. "I have." After David left, I finished my gardening, planted new marigolds along the walkway, and cleaned out the garage, a project I'd been putting off for months. Physical work helped clear my mind, gave me something concrete to focus on while my thoughts settled. Around sunset, my doorbell rang again. This time, it was Natalie herself, looking as exhausted as Marcel had, but with an edge of anger to her posture that I recognized from childhood tantrums. "You turned Dad against me," she accused as soon as I opened the door. "He called and read me the riot act about how I treated you." I stepped back to let her in. I simply told him the truth. "Your version of it." "The email version," I corrected. "The one where you told me I could watch your wedding through Google Earth. It was a joke, a stupid joke, and you've ruined everything over it." I regarded her calmly. "Is that really what you think happened? That I ruined everything over one thoughtless comment? What else am I supposed to think?" Everything was fine until you freaked out and pulled the money. Everything was not fine, Natalie. You lied to me for months. You let me believe I was welcome at your wedding while plotting with Marcel and his mother to exclude me. You took my money I worked hard for, while treating me like an embarrassing obligation. That's not true. But her eyes slid away from mine, betraying her. It is true, I said quietly, and we both know it. She crumpled onto my sofa, suddenly looking very young, like the little girl who used to come to me with skinned knees and broken toys, expecting me to fix everything. So what now? The wedding's off. Marcel's parents aren't speaking to him. Justin's furious with me for mishandling everything. And now Dad's disappointed too. I sat across from her, maintaining my distance both physically and emotionally. Those all sound like consequences of your actions. So that's it? You're just going to let me suffer? What happened to unconditional love? I do love you unconditionally, Natalie. But love doesn't mean allowing myself to be used and discarded. It doesn't mean financing my own rejection. I never rejected you. You excluded me from one of the most important moments of your life while expecting me to help pay for it. If that's not rejection, I don't know what is. She wiped at her eyes. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I see that now. But you're my mother. You're supposed to forgive me. Perhaps, I conceded. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It doesn't mean going back to how things were. Then what does it mean? She asked, her voice small. It means, I said carefully, that we have a chance to build something new, something honest, something that doesn't involve me sacrificing my self-respect for your convenience. She stared at me, clearly unsure how to respond to this version of her mother, this woman who set boundaries and held firm to them. The silence stretched between us, filled with the weight of years of unspoken expectations and disappointments. I don't know if I can do that, she said finally. Then that's your choice to make, I replied, just as I've made mine. After she left, I sat for a long time in my quiet house, feeling the tremors of the earthquake I'd set in motion. I'd upended not just a wedding, but an entire family dynamic, one that had been in place for decades. I'd chosen myself over peace, over appearances, over the role I'd been playing for so long I'd almost forgotten it was a role. The next morning, I called the travel agency and booked a trip to Italy, a dream I'd deferred for 20 years. Then I called Robert and asked if he'd like to have dinner with me the following weekend. Not as colleagues, but as something more. Justin called while I was making dinner. "Mom," he said, his voice both wary and curious. "Natalie told me what happened, what you said. And I think I finally get it. Why this matters so much to you. Do you?" "Yes." He sounded thoughtful. "I've been thinking about how many times you've put us first. Every time, actually. And how we've just expected it." I let his words settle between us, unwilling to rush in and make this easier for him. "I'm sorry," he said finally, "for not seeing it sooner, for taking you for granted. It wasn't everything, but it was something. A crack in the foundation of entitlement my children had built their relationships to me upon. A beginning. Thank you," I said softly. "So, what happens now?" he asked. I looked around my kitchen, my space, my life, finally my own in a way it had never been before. "Now," I said, "we all learn to live with our choices and their consequences.